Welcome back to part 2 of a two-part series where I show you how to make the mini and large Glacier Base Bags that are part of the Glacier Bags pattern bundle. I've gone ahead and put my Emmaline bag label on here. I waited till this time because I wasn't sure where I was going to put it, and I think it looks great there, so I've got a gunmetal handmade one on there. The front of the bag is ready to go, so in the next part of the instructions we're going to attach our foam. So what we have to do is get our 14 by 14 pieces of fabric if you are making the large, or the 12 by 12 if you're making the mini, and put that wrong side up. So we've got the right side to the back, and then overlap the foam onto there so that, and I'll just show you because it's not fitting in the screen, and then we can place the right side of the bag body right over top of that. And we're going to go ahead and pin all around just like we did with the gussets. It's no different. So I've got one done here. We've stretched it tight. We've pressed or pinned it all down in place. Just check the back and make sure you don't have any puckers. If it's a bit puckered, you'll have to fix that, but that looks good. And we're ready to baste around the outside edge. So do the long basting stitch and stay within the seam allowance again, so in between 1/8 and 1/4, about 3/16 of an inch, and that way we'll go ahead after you've done the basting stitches and do that zigzag that happens along inside here, and that really makes a nice compressed edge. This is going to be really nice to work with. So these are the two that I made for the mini that have the eau de coat finishing on them. And actually this time I didn't have a Teflon foot, so I put Scotch tape on the bottom of my presser foot, and it slid along quite nicely. So we've got our minis done, and now we just need to get our larges stitched to the foam, trim it away and zigzag it, and then we're going to be ready to start attaching our gussets after that. We'll get our gussets out and get them on these bags. Okay, so we're ready to put our gusset pieces onto our large bag or our mini bag, and I'll show you what that looks like for both of them. So this is the exterior of my gusset piece, and this is my lining. So I just want to remark that center line we did in the beginning on the zipper because mine had faded away. So I just took a ruler and measured between here and here and found the center again, and then marked it also in the seam allowances so I could see it when I'm pinning, and just double check to make sure you could see those markings on your side gussets, and the bottom marking is basically the seam line. For the front and back pieces, I just brought out my pattern piece again and lined it up really well and remarked on the front with a little bit of chalk pencil so I could see it, the top and the sides and the bottom as well. Okay, so start with the front so that we can make sure that we get our zipper pull located in the right place. This is the exterior of the fat bag. So we're going to flip this around so that we have the lining side up, and our zipper pull is on the left when we're dealing with the front of the bag, and that'll be so it closes on the left at the front. So line up the center top markings, and we'll clip that there, and then the side markings, line those up, clip, now what this does is it makes sure that the quadrants are exactly equal and that we don't have anything off to the side, so that this makes it easier to stitch together, so there's less easing in. We just want to make sure it's exactly even in each side so we can have enough to get out to our corners here. Okay, so the method for sewing these gussets on is actually exactly the same for the mini or the large. It doesn't matter which, so I'm just going to show you on one of them. Rather than clip everything all around and try to take that to the sewing machine, which would look like this, we're going to tackle it in sections. We're going to do the straight edges first, top, bottom, and then the sides. And then after the straight edges are done, we will ease in the corners. And that is actually just the easiest way to do it. It takes all the headaches out. You don't need to sew around the whole outside of this in one go. That's too hard. So what we'll do first is we'll just clip down this top edge here. When we do sew, however, we're going to open up this zipper, because look at how nice that lays flat when we're sewing. That it works a lot better that way. So we'll do the top, and actually I'm just going to clip the bottom as well, and we'll take this over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to do it, because I actually like to use my zipper foot even though we're not sewing right next to the zipper. I find that with all of these layers, being that there's a large height right here and this is quite a lot slimmer, if you use a wider flat foot, what ends up happening is your foot tips over to the side and it's really difficult to sew. So I will meet you over there. I just want to show you how I set up my sewing machine and my presser feet. I've just got on my regular straight stitch foot here, and normally we wouldn't need a zipper foot because we're not close to the zipper. But what happens when I'm sewing on layers like this is I get tipping. If it's not too many layers, it's not bad, but what can happen is because we've got these really compressed edges over here, and over here we have a bump, your foot will sew at an angle and it'll keep just sliding off. And when it slides off, your seam allowance gets smaller and smaller. So in order to combat that problem, I just go to my zipper foot, and a lot of people are afraid of zipper feet, but really they're pretty handy. You just have to make sure you don't sew on your fingers and get your fingers in there. My fast zipper foot is kind of strange looking, but it has a walking foot mechanism at the back, the IDT, which helps pull the fabric back. So even though I'm using a zipper foot, I'm still getting even feed with this fast sewing machine. So it works great. You might have something similar on yours. Now you'll probably notice all these black marks on my foot, and that is because I want to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I can't do that if I can't see where it is. And unfortunately, there's not a good mark on here that'll tell me where that is if I want my needle right at the edge. So I've gone and used my ruler and put one of my clear rulers underneath and set my needle where I want it, so it's right on the 1/4 inch line. There's stitch guides for this too, but I have them, but I just end up using my ruler anyway. And then I went and took my Sharpie and I just made a mark on my foot, and I've done this on other feet too, clear feet. I think it works great. You have to put it on every once in a while. It does wear off. And so I was able to figure out where that 1/4 inch seam allowance is. The other thing I've done is I've put down some tape. This tape is meant to be used on these gridded rulers, so you can take it on and off and mark out squares. So it is not very sticky at all. In fact, it's probably going to start peeling off partway through, and I might need to add it again. I don't even know if they still sell this. I've got this 100 years ago. So anyways, I'm all set up. I've got my 1/4 inch foot. If you don't want to use this method, if you'd like to try your foot or you have a better system happening, go right ahead. I find this works for me though. We're going to sew that straight edge I talked about across the top of the bag, and we'll just start right here, right before the curve. So I'll make sure that these edges are even, and when I start sewing, if I find that it is veering off and the foot is sliding off, that's okay. Just let it happen and sew a smaller seam allowance. We'll go back and check it and fix it after. So let's just start sewing along here. When you get to the clips, pull them out, but then realign each time. And I find that if I put my finger down or something down to help me, that works best. If you've got Annie's stiletto, by all means use it. So basically we don't want to zoom through here. I mean, we've put a lot of effort into this bag. Just flying through this section is not going to give us a great result. So I've got the zipper open, you notice, because it's really difficult to sew with it closed. And what I'll do now is to show you what it looks like on the inside. I always check my seam when I'm doing bags like this. I can always take puckers out now. Why wait until the bag is done, right? Don't usually have puckers on the straight seams, but I always have a look and make sure I'm happy with it. And then I move on to the next section. So breaking it down into sections really helps. We'll go right to the bottom edge now. Okay. And I also always check my seam width after. So I know this one's working. It's going 1/4 of an inch wide, but on the curves, you tend to veer out a little ways, and then you almost always have to redo small little bits. I'll try to use this screwdriver so that I don't get my fat fingers in the view of the camera. All right, so I'm going to stop there. By the way, this is my favoriteest thing in the world right now, my thread cutters. I have it attached right to my thread spool holder, and I never walk away with my zipper or my snippers anymore. It was one of my biggest angers and frustrations, was where are my snippers? So I'll move to this side of the bag now. Again, let's get that zipper open so it's easy to work with. And then clip the straight sections, because we'll do the straight sections because we don't need to ease them in. We know that they fit. We know that that's going to be an easy sew. Okay, now we're ready to start easing in our corners. Okay, let's start with the easiest ones first, which aren't the sides or the corners with the zippers. We will start clipping this around and see how it fits. If it's a bit too long, you have to ease in fullness. If it's a bit too short, you need to clip little notches so that it lies flat and spreads apart enough to fit that section. And this one was kind of just perfect, so I'm not going to be able to show you how to do either one of those. Let's get this corner stitched. So now a good idea is to sort of just play with this a little bit to make little pleats and gathers so that it lays flat. You don't want it up like this when you're sewing. You can't work with that. So what I like to do is kind of just do little finger gathers here. And then I put my hand on here and it lays nice and flat. When we get to these sections, if there's bumps, we're going to work with those in when we get to them. Okay, so we'll start sewing, watching our seam allowance. Hold this down nice with your hand. Get out your stiletto or your favorite little tool, and we're just doing small sections of sewing at a time. Do not zoom around this corner and don't expect to have it go perfectly perfect. We just need to ease in those little gathers so that we don't have puckers. So when you get to a bump, you can, after we are passing a bump, you kind of lift it up and press it to the back, and then it kind of goes away because it then goes behind the foot. And that'll take a little bit for me to explain, but basically I've gotten to a bit of a pleat here, so now I open it up and pull it to the back. And you just keep doing that all the way around. I've got a nice big pleat right here, so lift it up and pull it back and smooth out the fabric just in front. see that I've got a little bit of a pleat happening there, or a little bit of a gather. Just ease it in, smooth it out with your fingers, flatten that out. And stitch to your starting point. You can go a little bit further just to reverse stitch and anchor it down. Okay, now always have a look. Let's see what we need to do. Spread it apart and see if there's any puckers. Oh, there's a little one there, but it's not too horrible. I'm okay with that. It's not that noticeable. Now let's also have a look at our stitching. Did we stay at 1/4 of an inch? Do we need to stitch again? Nope, that looks really good. All right, I'm going to do the other corner that way, but I will show you a zipper corner because they're a little bit more difficult for sure. Okay, that one looks like it fits really well. And this one looks like it could do some clipping. So if you find that it's a bit tight and it just won't fit that area, just do a few tiny little clips just within the seam allowance, so only about a 1/8 of an inch long, 1/2 an inch apart, and that will just lay right down and lay flat perfectly for you. Okay, so the zipper makes these bubbles and these big bumps, and it's a little bit harder to get around these corners laying flat, so it takes a little bit more patience and fitting. Okay, so start. That's my thread. Doing something wonky. There we go. Always adjusting your fabric to fit so that your raw edges stay together, and I'm turning it with my left hand as I go. All right, so I've gotten to a spot here where there's a bump right here, and I've got nowhere to go. So then I lift up this zipper back here, and I flatten that out. Turn a little bit more, and then I can take that clip out. I'll stitch to my next spot where I might have some trouble, lift that up and flatten that out. Now, if you can see, there's a little bit of a, oh, the ripple went away when I took the clip out. There's a bit of a ripple there, so I'll lift that up and flatten that out. And that's that. Okay. So check for puckers. Looks good. And now check to see if we need to do any deeper seam allowances, and that looks like 1/4 of an inch to me, so it's perfect. So we'll go and do the other 2 corners, and then what you need to do after that is do the same exact thing to attach the other side. So make sure you open your zipper, otherwise you'll have no place to turn this bag. And then after you open your zipper, lay this down on your other side of your body piece, clip together the top section and the bottom sections, sew the straight lines, and then do the curves, and then we're going to be doing the binding. Alright, we're back from sewing on our gusset piece. We still have our lining here on the outside, and it's still wrong side out. Okay, so we're ready to attach our by Annie's fold over elastic, which is 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay, so we're going to join it right at the bottom center, and that's where we're going to start so that it's less noticeable. When you cut the fold over elastic, it actually frays just a little bit, so I'm just going to melt the ends with this lighter, and you actually don't even need to touch the edge of it. You just go like so, and the edge of it melts and it won't fray. Okay, so we're going to use our zipper foot again, and it's set at the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance once again, but I'm just going to move the needle over just like 1 or 2 little ticks if you have that feature.
we're going to start sewing 3/4 of an inch down so that we have a free end that will fold over the other end of the elastic when it comes around, because we don't really want to get close to our project with a lighter. So I am going to start by butting up that edge right next to, let's see, we'll get that through here, right next to the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you can see my stitching line from previous. I'm going to get that fold over elastic right up next to it. And this will be easiest if you use a tool like a screwdriver or an awl. I've got the zipper foot set up so it can sew right along that edge, and we're going to try really hard just to keep this up against our sewing line so that we don't go over. If we do go over, that's okay, but what you really don't want to do is slide off and fall off of the seam allowance. We want to keep this up next to it. So the biggest thing is don't go super fast. Go slow, and you don't need to stretch this elastic as you go. Really just keep it a little bit taut, a little bit tight and not stretched out, but not just sitting there floppy either. So you can just poke this over with your awl, get it up to the edge, and step by step we'll slowly get to the corner. It's also really hard not to get my head in here. So another thing I'm doing now when I'm getting close to the corner is I'm just going to start to just pull it a little bit. So one thing I want you to know is when you put this binding on and turn your bag right side out, the binding is actually going to be deep into the corners. So I don't want you to stress too much about how perfect this does or doesn't look. It's going to be deep into the corners and you're not going to see it. The area around the top of the bag where the zipper is, that's going to be more visible. So we do want to kind of have it looking really good and perfected our skills by the time we get to that part. But for right here, I've got a little bit of a pucker there, so I'm just going to bring it over a bit. For right here, it's, you know, it doesn't have to look complete. Don't know what I did there. I stabbed something. Okay, well, maybe that was something telling me that it does have to look perfect. Try your hardest, make this look perfect. Just kidding. So stretch it a little bit around the corner, and that's what is similar to bias tape binding. Bias tape binding, since it's cut on a bias, has a bit of stretch. So using the fold over elastic also gives you a nice stretch so that you can get around these corners and make a really nice edge. You'll get faster at this as you go, and there we go. Now we're on the straight, so just pull this out of the way, get this up here. Once you get on the straight, you can sort of go a little bit faster. And again, you don't need to stretch it through here, just enough so that you don't have gathers. We just want to make sure we don't have gathers, and we do want to make sure we keep it up here. So I'm just going to readjust. Looks good. All right, I will go all the way around here and meet you at the end, and I'll show you how to finish off. When we get down to the end, I've got this bit with the melted edge on the top, so I just need to overlap that a bit and make sure I cut the bottom piece. Actually, it's really hard to get my hand in here. Get my bottom piece cut so that it'll slide just underneath it. And okay, I think I'm just going to do one piece first and then go back over with the top rather than try to sew through two. Okay, so then I'll just back up a bit. Put it back underneath. Overlap that. Get it right where I want it. Okay. Do a little reverse stitch there. Just check it. Make sure it's going through nicely. Perfect. And then we'll just do a little reverse stitch again. And trim all those threads. We're going to have to go back through this bag after and trim all these stray threads anyway. Okay, so now we're ready to flip it over and flip it all over to the back, and because it is an elastic, it has it folds over beautifully. Okay, so when we're sewing this side now, we need to make sure that we fold it up to the edge at least, if not a little bit more. Okay, and I find it easiest to go around. You don't have to go all the way around with clips, but clip as you go so that it's pushed over and held in place before you get where you need to sew. Okay, so I'm just going to start right here. So I'll have to fold this part of the bag back to make it nice and flat, and get underneath the foot. Where's my handy little thing? There we go. So there's the stitching line from previous. This is where I not only did I stitch my seam, but looks like I got my stitched my elastic down right on the same seam line. Pulled it over just past that, put my foot down, and I think if you remember correctly, I'd moved my needle a little bit to the right. I'm just going to go one more to the right just so that I make sure that I don't veer into the bag area and stay just inside the stitching line. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so this is how you do it. Alright, so when you get to your clips, remove them and then go ahead and put it down in another spot, and then make sure you can check quite often that this is lined up, and just start moving along here like this. This part's actually faster. So get to your clip. I think I'm just going to move that one down just because I don't want such a huge gap. And if you get to a spot where it puckers a little bit, you can just lift your foot and readjust, and I'll show you what we'll get to a corner and I'll show you what that looks like, and then you'll be off and running. I want to show you how good it looks too. So let me just get a little bit done. It's really, I mean, I think that we've all had nightmares with bias binding before, and Annie's method from By Annie with the quilt folded like a quilt binding is actually really easy as well, and so is this. So okay, so I have a spot here where there's a little bit extra, so I'm just going to make sure my needle is down. I'm going to lift up, and I'm going to just push that into the space a little bit. I think, use my finger, and yeah, so just readjust as you go. Oh, there's one of Jane's clips, and look at how nicely that elastic folds over that rounded edge. Just want to check where my stitching line is. Yeah, it folds over just beautiful. I can just turn it with my hand, put another clip back here, Just don't want to get too far over. So I'm just going to have a peek. If you get too far over, you might start stitching into your bag body. And okay, well, I'm just gonna take this off so I can show you how awesome it looks. And so yes, it takes a little bit of time, but truly I think that it's totally worth it. Look how nice that is on both sides. It looks great. Okay, so I'm gonna finish doing this binding, and then we're going to attach our handle and do a really nice press and finish on the outside, and then this bag's done. Okay, let's put some bag straps on. For the mini, I haven't done an adjustable strap, just a regular straight strap. I made it to fit my size actually, so I know it's going to fit me crossbody. And for the straps on the sides where they attach, I'm just going to use some grommets, or sorry, some rivets again. And I think I'd like to put them on to match these two, so that I have two rivets here. I think that would look really nice. So that's what I'm going to do for the mini. And I'll show you how to do a adjustable strap if you haven't done one before. Grab your strap that you made earlier and get it all lined up so you know it's straight and not twisted. And with the side with the tab flipped over, which will be the back, up, go to the first strap ring and go up and under. It's most important that you don't go this way, but you go this way, and that way you can ensure that your strap is going to be lined up so that when you put it through these two rings on the slider, that you're going to be covering up the rivet or the strap end and trapping it in between these layers like that, so you won't see it. And that bag strap is done. Just need to bring it over to the other end and either stitch it so it's secure, or put a rivet there, or do both. Okay, so now we're going to press our bag for a really nice finish, and we just need to make sure we go through and press out all the corners and all the seams and make sure they're nice and rounded and they look pretty, and they're not and that they're pushed out all the way. You can go around and press all these seams by just flattening them out onto your ironing board and giving them a bit of a press this way. Do that at the bottom. And the sides and the top. We want to try to train it so it doesn't fold in like that. And the best way to do that is to give it some steam. I know some ladies who actually will stuff their bag with towels or whatever and then steam it in place and let it sit, and so it will take its shape. But another thing you can do is put in one of these big tailor hams, and they're awesome because they're very firm and you can just steam right into them just like that. Okay, and for the top gusset of the bag, it tends to kind of flip up like that. You can do the same exact thing. Fold this down, give it a little bit of steam there, let it cool down. This side is flipping up like this. Just give it a nice steam by folding it inward. Just want to make sure you don't burn your hands. If you've got delicate fabrics, by all means, you must use a pressing cloth. You don't want to burn yourself or steam yourself. For the cork bag, we can't really do a lot of steaming. It's not good for it at all. But what you want to do is roll out the seams and flatten them with your fingers. So finger pressing them over and just work them out and soften them up, rounding them all out. So just go around the edges of the bag
and roll those out to flatten them and just sort of work them down so your bag has a nice shape. Okay, you can do that all the way around the outsides. And well, I'm really happy with the way this bag turned out. It looks so cute, and the cork worked really well. Look, one of my straps has come off already. This one is going to be a really handy size. I can see me putting a tablet in here. It's a nice shape. Thanks so much for joining me while I stitch up these two bags. I hope you'll join me for the Glacier Crossbody Bag sew along videos as well. Those are going to come just after this one, where we're going to make the bag that has all the compartments put together. So it basically has a mini and a large together, and also a back pocket. So we've got 3 zipper sections here, plus this vertical pocket, and a bit of a treat inside. Oops, this one. Oh, we have a towel. We also have, let's see if you can see it, credit card pockets and a lipstick pocket as well. So that is going to be in our Glacier Crossbody sew along videos. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll follow us on YouTube and look for us at emmalinebags.com.